Have you unmuted yourself yet?
I haven't.
Beautiful intro, though. Like, as far as technology getting the better of us, this is like a clown show. What the hell?
Welcome back to Lunches with People, Purpose, Place. And today, epic fail with the technology. It's all entirely not my fault.
Yeah.
And so we've got two amigos, and neither of us know much about technology, and Darren's just glitching out there. So it's Darren. How are you, Darren?
Yeah, good. And I think that's your end. As long as we've got someone to blame, we're normally right. But yeah, really good. And obviously today was one of those days that was just not meant to be on lots of fronts. So we're down Christine, and again, this whole process is about us understanding ourselves as humans, both as individuals and groups. And Christine's gone, hang on, I don't feel up to it today. Let me regather and capture myself so I can be ready to charge on in the future, which is great that she's been able to identify that. And Christine was actually the reason why we started to have this conversation today, which was the introduction to Stella, who's also jumped in to help us for People, Purpose, Place, certainly with some of the functions around what Christine's been involved in, and by having that level of alignment, that sort of, I think, was then, hey, this seems like a real person who wants to have real conversations and has a unique perspective, and that probably led forward to today's proposed chat before the technology got in the way. Is that sort of where we got to?
You recapped it nicely without pointing fingers at anyone explicitly, but
yes.
Nicely summed it up. So we've said to Stella, she's an amazing human being who's got a enormous international photography, video portfolio of evidence, and just a compelling story to tell. She and her husband, she refers to him as Yogi, are going through a major journey right now. And there's the human story behind that journey that's very relevant for People, Purpose, Place. So without stealing too much of the thunder, we might go away and get our ducks aligned for a future conversation, which might be next Monday, where we will get some time aside with Stella in particular to go through this conversation. Hopefully Christine's back as well then. Anecdotally, I had an interesting conversation, and this keeps coming up. Now that we stop being focused on the things, so the legal framework or the finance framework or the bricks and mortar framework, and we start thinking about the humans and human relationships, the whole world opens up for conversation around how does this actually make a difference. Chatting to a practitioner who's got this mechanic that works around a legal and finance framework. And I said, that's well and good, that's excellent, and we need legal and finance frameworks. But how do you resolve the human bits? And there was crickets. And I said, understand that the human bits today and here and now, we will all sign up for a legal and finance framework that ticks the box today.
Yes.
But I'm a different person in 6 months' time, or a different human in 12 months' time. My needs change. How does this address that?
Yeah.
And we don't have answers.
And I had a very similar conversation myself this morning as well, along that same banking framework with a very progressive and enlightened bank, which is normally not in the same sentence. But also there was a reality check within there that we understand the current system, particularly the structure behind the banking system, is designed to produce one answer, and that's completely disconnected from the people that it's trying to respond to. And that's okay, because we know that the power of that system is, hey, we could have never previously leveraged anything to purchase anything to have the ability to get there. But we would also acknowledge that the tool's effectiveness changes over time. So, showing up with a trebuchet to a current warfare might not really help. Just stand there, guys, and be in your castle for a week.
This bad boy.
We'll definitely put a hole in it somewhere. And we passed, on the way out to the block on the weekend, past all this new modern warfare machinery because there's war games happening in Townsville or whatever. And you go, things have changed, right? So we've got to modify with that. And I think we should have more of these humanizing sessions, probably with actual humans here rather than us two. But
you and I don't count, yeah.
But I think everyone's unique perspective adds a layer of consideration, and I think that is important. And when even having the conversation today with with people from the lending world, this idea of generally loans can only work to satisfy people who fit into this bunch, and they can only lend for these properties, which are, we use these terms 4x2x2, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 garages. Now, who exactly desperately wants and needs that product? I think the amount of people that actually are in that space is retreating to a very small bunch. And I think maybe Stella's example, when we get to chat to her next week, will be another polarizing example of, I've actually got this thing, but it's completely inconsistent with how I want to live my life.
The best version of myself.
And what's the definition of home if it isn't tied to a physical thing? And that will actually be the pondering question: is once you open those things, what does that mean? And I think it's good to have people who have, like Stella, who has a very open understanding of that. And I think we're only talking in the last week about Gabor Mate's work. It's good to be disillusioned, because that's better than living in an illusion. And I think if that is really the first thing we do, which is and that's not conspiracy theory deep, that's just, hey, if you're feeling disconcerted with how you live, maybe it's worth advancing and understanding why that's the case.
Yes, advance our thinking, don't run from it, because both an illusion and being disillusioned, both of them are uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and one of them
you're right.
will be unconsciously uncomfortable. I don't know that this is all fake and make believe, but when you know that it doesn't serve the humans, that's uncomfortable. They're both uncomfortable.
I think that's a very good point, and I think the more I understand that, the more that you come to this realization that just because you're consciously disillusioned is actually no better a place to be in, to be just living in la la land. And I think we all have a sense that something's not right, like that unease. And particularly when we talk about housing, one of the things we talk about in our first workshop is really that idea that, maybe our underlying concerns are at the bottom of Maslow's pyramid, which means if we're all somewhat frustrated by how we're surviving, the cost of living, and some of that impact is around housing, what underlying sense of unease is essentially being perpetuated by how we live and ultimately the houses that we live in or don't live in. So that feeds strongly into what we've been talking about.
Indeed, it's a pity that you've dropped the ball with the technology and let us down this week. But it looks like Stella's ticked a box. Here she is. 2 thumbs up. Well done, Stella. Congratulations on some work there.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah, wow.
Well, thank you for persisting with the technology in the background. That was giving us grief.
That's interesting.
Welcome, Stella, as a guest to People Purpose Place. We've given you a bit of a wrap in absence of technology working for us, and I'd invite you to, depending on how you feel, whether we want to continue with today. We've taken up some time with Darren and I talking nonsense. I guess people are used to that. or we could reschedule to do next week, and maybe we can do a bit of both. Are you feeling ready to jump into a conversation about Stella's story?
Today or next week is fine with me.
Let's
we could
jump
probably
in
make a
now
start.
and
What do
see
you
what
think?
we can do.
Yeah.
You want to? Let's do it now.
Yeah,
I
let's
think
go.
so. I wonder maybe we could start with a bit of a background. I've introduced you saying that you and your husband are going through a major life change at the moment with your industry, your background, experience, professional experience, and you've got some insight about how you're going to face that going forward, which is really quite interesting. Can you maybe tell us a bit about yourself to set the scene, and then we can jump into that?
Okay, so my name is Stella Freund. I'm my maiden name is Chu, and I'm from the Philippines, but we've been immigrants and citizens of Australia for 20 years. Myself, and our industry is photography and now videography, but we do nature as we photograph nature and conservation. We do a lot of conservation work through the years. My husband's name is Jürgen Freund, and he's a very well-published photographer from Germany. And
you do beautiful work. It's absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
Work that
Thank
you do.
you. And as you said, our industry is constantly under fire with improvement. Is that improvement for the individual? Magazine work and conservation work from likes of WWF, Worldwide Fund for Nature, and Conservation International. Those have been our world for all our working life. But magazines, as you know, the paper magazines are very quickly gone, and we still have an assignment for this coming December for coral rehabilitation for a German magazine, but we wonder when that will last. When that magazine will. It's struggling. It's surviving by the skin of its teeth, and so we're adapting constantly. We have done work for WWF for more than 20 years, 30 years. And our biggest work for them was on the Coral Triangle, which is 6 countries of Asia Pacific. We did a very big expedition for WWF, photographing people, places, and nature, marine work mainly. So we have lived in the Atherton Tablelands and therefore know Christine very well for the past 10 years. And we have a house, a home, our home in the Tablelands, which we feel is, my husband's a photographer. I'm a producer. I'm a broadcast producer and a story producer. And if we're not out, we're not out and about doing the photography, and we're staying at home, we are not doing what we're supposed to be doing.
So is it sort of even a bit? It's an impediment. This home and being
somehow
housebound
somehow
is actually diminishing your professional.
And what we have done is we live in far north Queensland, and business has often been going overseas, going to Asia, going to the Pacific, and therefore Cairns was our hub to fly out to through Singapore to all other parts of Southeast Asia, and as such we are so well ensconced in the Atherton Tablelands. It's beautiful, it's our backyard is absolutely beautiful, and we've been doing a lot of conservation work with organizations here, and it's wonderful, but the business has to be beyond far north Queensland.
Yes.
And so we have made the decision to rent out our home and go forth and see Australia. More and more we know that Asia Pacific, we have really thoroughly documented a lot of that through our conservation work. And now it's like, that's why we moved to Australia, to see Australia, and to travel and to document and see where it leads us. But we know that we need to be where people are, where there's more. We live in a beautiful part of the country, but we are far. We're truly far.
Yes.
And there's not a critical mass that we need to address, and we need to hear our stories.
So do you think that you'll be nomadic, but domestically Australia? Is that sort of the thinking, that we'll travel around and document this beautiful country that we live in while we're able, while it's here?
Yes.
As your next chapter, rather than the international focus? Is that sort of primarily?
That's the decision that we have come to have. And we have wanted to do this for a long time. After we came back from the Coral Triangle, we were so alive. We had 18 months of documenting.
Sounds idyllic.
It was unbelievable. And a book came out of that. And we have a book that's funded by the Asian Development Bank and WWF. And that was because we were solidly working in photographing and telling stories of people's lives.
And stories is such an important part, isn't it, Stella?
It is.
I recall in my life experience that I've met exchange students or visitors who do their couple of years backpacking around Australia. And often these people who are from Europe or Asia come here for a short period of time, see more of this country than all of the locals.
That's right.
So they'll do the whole loop, or they'll drive
Absolutely.
a van up and down the eastern seaboard and see some beautiful, amazing stuff.
Absolutely.
Yet we get so into our cocoon of living in suburbia and returning to the nest each night and switching on the TV that we don't actually go and see the boulders in the Tully River or really close and immediate, magnificent country that even different seasons is worth seeing in the dry and then in the wet.
Yep. Winter, last year, we went to the outback and we photographed budgies, the murmuration of budgies all over the outback. We went from Alice Springs to Marie in South Australia, and through travelers, through stories, with asking questions, and we were dogged in wanting to document budgies and where they were and where they were seen. And we traveled, in our Osmobile. We have a troop carrier, and that's our home away from home. And that's going to be our home, and that's going to bring us to see places. And we were able to document murmurations in billabongs and in dams and in the field. And then later on in Winton, we were led to the breeding ground in National Park. And the only way to know it is to follow your nose and to document whatever it is that you see with your eyes, and see emus along the way, and see so much wildlife, or the lack of. Sometimes we hardly saw kangaroos. There were no kangaroos that we saw in the outback. last winter, which was really odd.
Yeah, and I've observed maybe sometimes that's due to the current conditions. So if there's no need for them to move around because there's plenty of feed, you don't see so
Probably.
much of them on the road.
Probably, yeah. Probably.
But that's by getting immersed in the country and observing in the here and now, and then over time, and like you say, following your nose to unearth the story, to dig it out, and then
That's
tell them,
right.
share the story. It's beautiful. How would you say that you feel about this adventure that you're going on? Because it's quite a significant change to pack up the house and give it to somebody else,
Well,
rented,
yes,
then hit the road.
yes. It came with a lot of a discussion. We have known for some time that we need to be on the road.
Yeah.
But that decision has to be made, and the decision of what to do once we make that decision, and what to do is first thing, and to see what's in the house that has to be culled and has to be. So we've spent pretty much the whole last month, making that decision and following a plan, making a plan, following the plan. My husband is German, so he has his. We have to follow the plan. Once there's a decision, we. The most difficult was making that decision.
How did you feel about that decision process? So you I understand it's not an overnight thing. You've taken, it will still take some time to finalize this.
So the decision was to rent out the home, rent out this house, which in retrospect, trying to justify this decision, Yogi, my husband, says we are house sitters in our own home because we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, which is going out there. Wow. And once we kind of internalize that and says, it's not anymore the right thing to stay in this house. And that decision became the driving force for the weeks to come. And we started clearing. We have a lot of stuff we've accumulated in 20 years. We've been living in Australia.
And some of that you would say there's no real point in storing stuff that is into a shipping container, or I'm just moving stuff around. Why do I need to keep hold of that?
We have brought things from the Philippines to Australia that we have had in rental properties and then now in our own home, and accumulated. You're in your home and you have income, and all of a sudden you want this and you want that, and now that we're culling and we're getting rid of stuff, throwing things into the tip, giving things away in the animal welfare, the secondhand shops, and selling. So these three activities have made us realize that we really don't need this stuff. We really don't need much to be happy and to live. And what really is home is the two of us and the work that we do outside of this edifice, which at the end once we rent out, will help us.
Wow, that's a big statement, that home is, your relationship, your husband and wife relationship together is actually the paramount part.
Yeah. We have been together 23 years, and I have been a documentary producer in the Philippines before I met him. And it was a decision on my part that I stopped the work that I've been doing in the Philippines, and the two of us worked together. So it's been 24/7 for 23 years.
Wow. Some
And
ups and downs in amongst all that, no doubt.
it's a lot of time together.
Yeah.
So, and when I'm away, let's say I go to the Philippines and meet and be with my family, he calls me all the time, and my mom says, "What do you have to talk about? You have you're nonstop talking. You're together all the time, and you're still talking on the phone to each other."
Yes.
It's because it's my home is him, and his home is me.
Well, that's beautiful.
I actually
Really
half
beautiful.
wonder, listening to those conversations, I've got a couple of really things I'd like to chat to you about, but I find that really, I find interesting that is English your first language, because you use words that we don't generally use in normal conversation as an Australian person, but they're beautiful because they highlight, we tend to dumb down our language. And I like that, earlier on when you were talking about purpose, you made the statement that it makes you feel alive to be doing those things. And Australians tend to downplay the emotion bit, right? They don't like to be quite so emotive, but it's beautiful because it gives us some passion back behind that, and the connection back to the human nature thing, and understanding that a home can actually be another person, or it's a connection, it's not a building. It is really quite powerful. So from your growth, was English part of something that you learned very early, or was it something that sort of went in tune with other languages?
So English is my first language.
Yes.
My father spoke to us in English. My
Yes.
father came from China. He came from Canton, China, but he was very well educated in the Philippines in a Jesuit school, and so English was his first language. No, Cantonese is my father's first language.
Yes.
But to us, he spoke in English, and
Okay.
my mother spoke to us in Chinese.
Right.
And I grew up in the Philippines, so Tagalog is the medium of the spoken language. My father died when I was young, and that influence has been very strong. That English became my default language. That's how I think. That's how I dream. That's
Yeah. Right.
It's English. Um, so, in terms of the way I structure my sentences, probably I'm Asian, and
Yes.
Asian is very we're emotional. We
Yes.
are pretty much we're grounded, and we're not ashamed or shy to speak our feelings. And in that way, I come across as probably passionate, and I am very passionate with what we do, with what I believe in. I'm Chinese in my heritage, but I shun from the Chinese ways of being business and being driven by monetary acquisition, and that quest for amassing wealth. That's been my family, my
Yes.
my cousins and my mother, and survival. And because my mother had to raise 5 children on her own, and I understand my mother, and she did an amazing job raising
Yes.
5 children on her own.
Yeah.
And without the support network and the background that we
No,
are used to here
no, no.
today, it would have been, fend for yourselves.
Right, right. Um, she's totally amazing. And Mother's Day yesterday is a tribute to amazing mothers, and
Absolutely.
and how they have raised all of us, and how I'm so proud of her, how she raised me, and and my values are intact. And I think that is so important in how I read People Purpose Plays. It's like we have similar core values that we abide by, and you talk about alignment, and I see it. We're aligned, and it's because I watch you guys, and I resonate. I resonate fully with you, because the core is the same.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can learn with your influence, Stella, and really appreciate your open and your emotional side, because bricks and mortar and things aren't going to get us as humans where we need to be.
Yeah.
We need to engage definitely with that emotional level as well.
And I think that perspective, or I'm not using the right words here, but that understanding that we're all living within a certain framework, and the reality of the fact that if you're conscious enough that, hey, the society that I live in, or my background growing up said I normally should have defaulted to capitalism as my way of doing my life. If I can then put that aside to figure out what's of true value to me, and to those around me, then I can develop a purpose. And I'm actually interested in that bit as well, because our name is People Purpose Place, but the people stuff we've spent a lot of time on, and we know by default we've spent time working in the place bit, right? But this purpose bit sits in the middle, and it almost appears that when I'm listening to you, that and even this idea that your house sitters in your own home is a unique perspective, and it goes to the idea that your purpose is so powerful that how to do that is almost a flow-on effect. And how do you think you developed that purpose? Like, did the work come first, or did the purpose come first? Like,
I think for myself, before I met Jürgen Freund,
yes,
I bought the picture from him for a TV commercial in the Philippines, and that's of a whale shark. And we fell in love. We got married, and but my world was that of advertising, and I left advertising because I was looking for meaning. I didn't find meaning selling food or pharmaceutical or products, and I wanted to find a higher purpose to the work that I learned how to do, which was broadcast production. I've made TV commercials, radio commercials, audiovisual presentations. And when I left advertising and started finding clients who I thought, this is worthwhile, this is worth my time doing. And the more I made it, the more I personally felt fulfilled. And then the fulfillment is because what I knew how to do, I did with a reason and a purpose. And then, and it led to environmental conservation. And that I knew was what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I was in my 30s, and I knew that I wanted to make a difference. And then when I met Jürgen Freund, and he photographed the most amazing wildlife, the most amazing conservation materials. And together, we have been doing it for 23 years. We've been publishing in European magazines, in Asian magazines. And the biggest joy in my life is working with WWF And I want to continue that. I want to work within Australia, and there's a Regenerate Australia effort that's done by WWF, and I want to do that. I want to continue the strengths that we have, telling stories that for me has purpose. And if it's to live in our troop carrier, going from ranger to ranger, telling their stories, finding out what wildlife is getting protected, and documenting people's stories. You know, people need to be in the story to tell how wildlife is protected. I've just finished a book on a bat hospital, and this is a bat hospital not far from here. It's called the Tolga Bat Hospital, and I was able to raise money for printing and design of this book. And it's an amazing story that I know I have the talent to put together, to share to the world. And very soon it's going to be a book and an ebook. And
that's awesome. And it's almost, and feeling into what you've said there, I also get this, and it's very similar to ours. So, you know, we've been working in this construction space, and you get to the point where this is all a little bit silly sometimes, and it's transactional, and it's about wealth creation and all these things generally. But, you know, we've felt that there's a purpose greater than that. And that means that, you know, truly satisfying our human needs should not be about a house. It should be about a home. And the interesting thing that I've found with your story is also gives some more credence to people who go on this journey about, you know, what does living look like differently, is you've expressed that if you have a strong enough purpose, then the building becomes irrelevant, and that you will go through the journey. So one of the things that we struggle with is that we're trying to find a way for people to open their eyes enough that they can then go, my purpose in life is powerful enough that I don't want to be tied down by a home. I want to be tied down by the things that are giving me purpose to myself, but also giving purpose to everyone around us, right? You know, so your story is inspirational. It gives hope for all of us that we're all part of a society that is trying to do things that are beyond us as individual consumers. And I think fostering that purpose then says, when I move into the uncomfortable spot, you're moving into an uncomfortable spot of lack of security and feeling like you're being nomadic. But for a lot of people we're talking about, if we're saying you need to move in this uncomfortable spot of not being an individual consumer and actually needing to reconnect with humans, and that will free you from the shackle of housing to allow you to dive wholeheartedly into what makes your life important and what gives it purpose and what contributes to those around you. There's a fear with that. But I think what you've shown me today is that if the purpose is powerful enough, then you can continue to soldier on through that level of uncomfort that occurs just by following your heart, because not always with the heart is there always a lot of logic. And that, you know, brings you into spaces where it's going to be uncomfortable. And I think you're in that spot right now a little bit, aren't you?
We are in a spot of change is always a commitment. And with change comes a lot of fear that you're leaving behind something secure and comfortable, and going to the unknown. And it's exciting, yes. It's but I have fear. I don't, believe me, I have so much anxiety in me that, but in the past month, I have gone from sleepless nights to being able to sleep because I'm so tired cleaning this house to get it ready, to be rented. You know, it's like, which is good because I'm physically exhausted. That I've just been sharing that we've been cleaning the eaves around the house. We don't clean house, you know. We don't know how to do that, but we've learned how to get rid of the mold and to try to sanitize, and it's 10 years of mildew. So I call it a symbolic phrase. Our life is 10 years of mildew in this house.
Yeah.
And by getting rid of it, by cleaning it away, seeing white again, and probably that's our path forward. And but what's really, really good is we've been selling, we've been getting rid of a lot of stuff. And through Facebook Marketplace, I'm able to like sell so quickly. And people come here, and when we share what it is that we're planning to do, we see either incredulous disbelief that we are going to be living in our troop carrier, going all around Australia, or a look of, wow, you're going to do it. You're going to, for others, it's living a dream. But for us, it's living our purpose. It's living what we're meant. We have talents. We have gifts that will not do justice to it if we stay at home.
Yeah.
We have to be out. We have to be out.
Take
We
the head
have to
off.
be. And when we tell these stories, you're listening to me, and I'm encouraged because you believe in the stories that we're telling, and I'm afraid, but I'm excited. It's in equal measures.
Absolutely, and I think it's almost something I've got there is, even when we talk about people, purpose, place, everyone needs to almost be nomadic occasionally so they can rethink about what what inside their house are they tying to bits and pieces, and what could they do without, just because you've accumulated the stuff by accident or process or by society or whatever might be the mechanism. And that's that's something that's worth us all refocusing on occasionally, is how can we give ourselves a nomadic mentality so that we can do that, and then give ourselves a chance to cleanse and move away from the physical thing and back into the purpose and the reason. So,
and maybe that's adjusting to our current chapter. Our life has these progressions of being infant, child, adult, parent, grandparent. There's the biological chapters, and then there's progression of your professional self, acquiring skills and then developing mastery. And now we want to share and enrich the world with our mastery of storytelling. In Stella's case, you're doing us no service sitting at home on the couch. If the option is to get in the troop carrier and document.
We're going to go to your places. We're going to present. You're going to help us spread the word that Stella and Yogi are going to be presenting their lives, and through our stories, share conservation stories. And
inspiring.
So that's what we want to do. We want to go from town to town and present first, and then later on, because he teaches as well, to do nature workshops, nature photography workshops, to share our love for the craft, and in seeing nature through the lens and through our stories and through our eyes, and connecting through nature and building a stronger mental health, because when we're so down and out, we just go out to nature, and we know it's perfect, and we forest bathe, and we dive into the ocean, and we see the fish and see the wildlife that surrounds us. And in Australia, we're so lucky that it abounds
Indeed.
everywhere we go, and it's phenomenal, and it's wonderful. So we just want to share that to every person we meet. And
one question is, obviously, with one thing I notice, there has been a little bit of a nomadic attitude in the last couple of years. Like obviously COVID promoted a lot of people to sort of go, I don't want to be any part of this thing. I'm just going to go on the road. But a lot of people did have a reality check from that, you know, like it sounds really good to be on the road, but I know you've been there before. So ultimately you're not going in there with rose-colored glasses. You're sort of, you know, I'm going to be living out of a troop carrier. This isn't going to be all sunshine and happiness.
No.
So there is a reality to the fact that there is some challenges with living out of a vehicle or you know, those sorts of things. How have you experienced that today? Do you get over that challenge by purely having such a strong purpose that that's just part of the journey?
We have been able to live in our troop carrier straight 3 months, nonstop.
Yeah. Wow.
And in the outback.
Yep.
We have been in the Kimberleys straight 3 months. But more and more of we hear stories of theft, of break-ins, and that scares us. So we don't go into this with pink glasses or rose-colored glasses. We know the reality out there, but we also know that connecting immediately to a community gives us a feeling of security, gives us a feeling of being embraced. When we're presenting, when we do a public presentation, everyone opens their doors to us. It's incredible. It happens all the time, whether you're in Asia, you're in the Pacific, you're in Australia. When we share of ourselves, the generosity given back to us is pure, and they think, oh my gosh, you know, we need to adopt these guys. But it's so wonderful, you know, when generosity is everywhere, but we have to give it first, and we have to when they feel that we have opened ourselves to them, and we have so much to give. The reciprocation is immediate, and so we will house it. You know, there is a world of house sitters out there, and we will also link with the conservation world and do stories from that angle, and so we will evolve. We will see if we can do this for a year, 2 years, 10 years. Who knows? And but the journey will begin. It will begin now, because we are going to symbolically end cut the umbilical cord of being in a home in our house.
I can hear the German influence in there somewhere too in you now. So you've been together long enough that I can hear the German. I'm joking. But I think that's really, I really like that point. And I think that's one of the things we're actually trying to foster is I love that you can see that by having a human connection with other humans who genuinely validate both people's position, and there's genuine, open communication. And I think you express there, once you express your vulnerability to people and say, look, we are also connecting with you from this position, which is we're coming into your town and we want to feel safe as well, and we want to feel connected to you, but we also want to give to you. So this is not a one-way relationship. This is actually, we're willing to give if you're willing to help. And what does that mean? I think this connection point is so undervalued in our society that you don't have to have anything to be connected to a human. And expressing that connection is really what we hope People Purpose Place might be about, even if that's on small groups. If we learn the ability to, as individuals, to communicate with that connection mindset, even in small groups, I think that then fosters a wave within society where we're all going, hey, if we just gave space for the other person to share themselves, and we could genuinely connect with them on a human level, how do we approach the next sentence when we're at that place? And I think you just articulated what happens then. You know, everyone gives.
Everyone gives. And actually, it's the marketplace is symbolic as well, the Facebook marketplace. We post things to sell, and when there's a pickup of this thing that we're about to sell, the human connection of meeting someone, coming to your home to buy your item, and then telling each other stories.
Yeah.
And once we all have stories to tell, and once we get to that level, it's authentic. It's the heart is talking to the heart, and that honesty is so powerful. It's just so powerful. And we've been giving presentations for many years, and we speak from the heart. And so that is how the connection happens. Truth comes out. And certainly what comes with truth is, it's not all success. It's not all the accolades. It's also the fears and the sacrifices and the insecurities, the vulnerabilities. And I think that connects stronger than rah-rah of this is what we have done and what we're good at. I think people connect more with fear and
with your full truth, you know. So rather than
the full truth, correct.
And as you said, I think in our society, if we can get to a point where everyone's own truth can just be taken the way it is, because we're all going to have different perspectives, right? And truths are going to be very different depending on the lens that you're looking through. But if we can accept each other's truth and see the real human behind that, well, then that's when we have a connection which can pass anything. And as you said, I think people see, and I love that word, authenticity. You know, there is certainly something with that. The authentic you that we see, then we go, oh, okay, I can be my authentic person because they're being authentic, which has to come with vulnerability. There's no doubt.
Yeah, it gives people permission to be human as well. So we also understand that it's not going to be perfect each time. We will make missteps and we will get things wrong along the way. But if you've made that connection, once we've got past that connection, we can keep returning to that. Hey, we're authentic and truly and open and honest. Why is this not working? Why is that not working? We can actually engage in that conversation. Whereas with digital world, we just turn it off. We just don't go back to that platform and we ghost someone rather than returning to an authentic connection in the first place.
I've actually had a bit of a thought that maybe as you continue your journey around, regional Australia, that People Purpose Place should follow behind you, because ultimately we feel like regional Australia is the bit that's actually probably been most forgotten, because while capital cities, they get another $1 billion on a tunnel to go under a river or whatever, regional Australia is sitting there going, well, we're not getting any younger. We're small communities trying to fend for ourselves, but there's a paradigm shift of, I have to move from me being 100% in control of everything to what happens if we had to share, and what does that look like? And then is my purpose strong enough to allow me to pass through that gauntlet, and can I come out the other side? So I also think that maybe there's a space for us to, and you're already a beautiful, articulate communicator. So if you can only, articulate that to others as well, that there is another way to be living in regional Australia, which doesn't involve in us all being silos of consumption, but maybe we can be connected as humans and use that beautiful part of humanity to find better ways for us to live in harmony with each other would be amazing.
Would be a good outcome.
And the admission of we need each other.
Yeah. Yep.
We really need each other. And the more digital our world becomes and the more depressed we get.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get into that rabbit hole of the digital and of in isolation of everyone else. It was when I started going out and connecting with friends again that my fears started, leveling down and getting, because if it's just the two of us, my husband and I, we circle within ourselves and the digital and it's like I'm gonna drown. I'm gonna drown in this fear of what next. And then when it was when I started sharing my feelings with other people, and I'm not alone. And there's so many other people. So many other people have way harder situations than us. We have a home. We have, even if we're paying mortgage for this, it's ours. And we're not homeless, really. Because as I said, home is where the two of us are.
Yeah.
Wherever we are home. So this is just the structure that's keeping us at the moment. But other people have nowhere to go, and it's frightening how much of these people are out there.
Oh, 100%. And I really, I get your point that, we have the digital world has never made us in the history of humans more connected, but had such poor connection.
Correct.
And I think, isn't it interesting that our worries go away, well, not go away, they don't go anywhere, but they rationalize in a way that only comes with other human connection and sharing. And we're the connected bit stops us from doing this. Like, although we are using a digital format now, and there's been times when you've talked, I can actually feel in my body changes due to your excitement level or your concern or whatever. So I think we can still use the digital medium to find real connection. But a lot of times we're only using a superficial version. We're not sitting face to face like this, really listening to what we've got to say. We're giving our 160, bits or less, because that's how we have to connect. Whereas I think there's, the true connection bit is the stuff where all the power takes place. And
once you feel the empathy, once you're feeling it, then
once we're tuned,
you're attuned to human behavior and human feelings. And
exactly. 100%. And then we can use this tool as a tool to facilitate it. But we've first got to get that alignment or attunement. Alignment of values and purpose and goals, and with alignment and with purpose, you can jump out of bed, you can climb mountains, you can do almost anything.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Really conscious of a lovely conversation that we could probably go on for days and weeks yet. But let's not do that right now. We would love, as Darren pointed out, we'd love to follow your story and your journey, because it's a beautiful story and you communicate it so well. Thank you so much for sharing some time with us today at People Purpose Place. I hope we can do justice when we share this with our audience, and hopefully we can stay in touch and keep the conversation going.
I would love that. And thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Absolutely our pleasure. Darren, you got any comments to wrap up today? We generally have a checkout if there's.
Yeah. I mean, my checkout, I've really pulled a couple of things there that I have found really important for us to be conscious of. I always wondered about, how the purpose really sat within People Purpose Place, but you both have been shone a light on the idea that building the power of purpose enables you to then deal with whatever comes, what uncomfortable spaces come from beyond that. And that it's super important as humans that we live our purpose, because we only get one chance at this, right? So there will be enormous challenges, and I've taken on board some of the stuff in People Purpose Place. Sometimes it feels like we're yelling into the silence, talking about a conversation that isn't readily being held, but your willingness to take on your purpose certainly gives me a good pep, and hopefully gives other people some ability to say that my purpose is really valuable, and that will help me go through what will come next, whatever that has come next. And the added factor for me from our conversation has been, if you then add connection to purpose, that you can then really get through so much as humans, and that's an enriched life. That's a life with purpose that's worth having. So thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stella.
Do I check out as well?
Please do.
I have gratitude. I have so much gratitude to having you listen to my stories, and recognizing that indeed we have that purpose to share, and because we may think it's our purpose, if it's not reciprocated, then it's like, what are we doing this for? But you have responded so wonderfully to my stories, and it's an encouragement to do it, and we will. You will see us. We shall visit you.
Face the fears. Thank you. We will sign off and see you next week for lunchtime with People Purpose Place. Much appreciation, Stella. Gratitude in reciprocation for the time and the authentic connection with your story. It's definitely a beautiful story and very heartwarming to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Much appreciated. Thank you.